when you get older and then you start being aware of your blackness, those stories, those images of Emmett Till when you were a kid that shook me are starting to come back now. You know what I mean? And I'm aware of my blackness all the time. And, you know, you're seeing how the world is right now, and just super appreciative of those teachers who put me on at the time to see that some things have changed, but for the most part it hasn't. You know what I mean? And to also be proud of your blackness and whatnot. I'm learning all the time. You know, now I'm like watching documentaries all the time. It's like, I wish I got to have, had that appreciation. I mean, I'm like a kid, kids, everything goes over our head.
That's all of us. Yeah.
But now it's like, I wish I had those moments where I could have sat there and talked to them, like really talk to them about like what they went through. You know what I mean?
You ready, Chris?
You ready, Ben?
Let's get it.
Man, let's get it, man. Welcome to the Follow Then Lead podcast.
We have our special guests here, Vanessa and Jocelyn Leveille.
Yes. Thank you.
Welcome
for having
to the show.
Welcome, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is a pleasure, man.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. So I see you guys every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My upstairs neighbors.
Yeah. This is my first time meeting them, and just right off the bat, I could feel the energy, the love.
Awesome.
Hey, man, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Awesome. Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, I think we're in good spirits today, so.
Yeah.
Dope stuff,
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
Beautiful.
Why are we in good spirits today? I mean, we're expecting, so I'm all up on her a little bit more often.
What are you expecting?
What
What are you expecting?
I'm sorry, a
expecting a
baby.
baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
baby. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell.
Right.
Okay. All right.
It's been hard to tell.
Yeah. So we got ready this morning. Had a pretty good sleep. We had a little conversation on our way here, just talking about random stuff, things that we like about each other. So I think, just probably that's what you're feeling. You know what I mean? Just, I guess we, checking up on each other, seeing how we're doing, and those little talks together are pretty good as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's the best. Just you said just randomly talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the best right there, man. That's just the flow. You ain't trying to come off the top of your head like, I need to talk about this with my wife or with my husband. We just freestyling. We just getting off each other. It's beautiful. It's just the flow.
Yeah, exactly. Most times we're home. She's downstairs watching TV. I'm upstairs watching TV or on the computer. And I don't think it's often that we get, maybe we should do this a little bit more often, but, often that we have moments where the devices are gone and it's just us sitting in a car. It doesn't even have to be a car, but, nothing else
Just
to do in
sitting
a car.
together.
But just talking.
That
you know what I mean?
intimate setting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
dope
exactly.
stuff. I like it.
Yeah.
Man.
It's needed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's needed. All right. So I don't know who goes first. Vanessa Gari goes first because we introduced you first. But
Okay.
can you just talk about your childhood, like where your life was like growing up?
Right there.
Yeah, we'll go there, and
Straight
then
there.
we'll just kind of lead, and just grow from there.
So I'm Afro-Cape Verdean, born in Dorchester, born and raised. We're actually living around the corner in the same neighborhood I grew up in. And, having grown up in that neighborhood, rough childhood. My mother passed away when I was 10 from cancer. And I was raised by my relatives. I was raised by my aunt and uncle. And my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, had came from Cape Verde and were taking care of my sister and I after my mother passed away. And so while I had some adversities, I loved living in the hood. That was
Nice, yo.
And I think I appreciate it now more in adulthood than I think I did then. But it gave me a lot of sense of character, perseverance, appreciation of people around me, a sense of community. Back then, there was a lot of community.
Yeah.
if I did anything in the house, the entire street knew about it. That kind of community too. Where my grandmother would be on the phone, you won't believe this kid, and everyone knew and everyone watched out for you. And yeah, so I think that really shaped me. I think those early losses and also what I saw growing up and the experiences that I had, I think really shaped me to be grateful, a grateful person that I am today. Yeah.
And you had a support system with your sister. You didn't really talk about that, but it was just y'all two.
Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best friends, still best friends.
Oh yeah.
To this day, it's pretty. I have a sister as well, and we're not anywhere as close. We're close, but not as close as Vanessa and her sister, or where they're legitimate best friends, texting each other all the time, and things like that.
Yeah. There's not a day that goes by that we don't talk. I mean, I have other siblings as well, but there's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't talk.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's a little bit of my childhood.
Okay. So you mentioned your mom passed and your grandmother helped take care of you. Oh, sorry. Say your father.
Mm-hmm.
Was he around? Things like that.
He wasn't as involved the first 10 years of my life. He was there. I don't think I knew him as closely as my mother did. I actually met him when my mother passed away. And so after that, I got to know him probably not as intimately as I did as an adult because I wanted to get to know him. Because I started to put in more effort and started to understand him as a person and just see him as an individual. And so I think that I gained a greater appreciation of him in my life in ways that I probably didn't growing up because he wasn't around. And then he passed away in 2016. So that was a tough loss also.
The experience, your childhood, the experience of your father not being around. I'm pretty sure you have friends.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the neighborhood, you see them, they have their father around. What was that experience like for you, coming up as a child? What I'm trying to get is, I guess what mental dynamics or whatever, what kind of state of mind did that put you in as a child, if you can remember?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I saw a mixture of both because again, I grew up, in the hood, and we're not saying that in the hood is where you see, less of a two-parent home, but I did see that a lot with a lot of the folks around me, with relatives, with friends, and the little that I did see with a two-parent household, I don't think I felt that void because I also lived with my uncle and my grandfather, who were father figures in my life.
Nice.
And so I don't know that I felt it as deeply, but I think as I got older and I started to date, then I started to realize what that void actually did in my life.
What was the void? And what did it do? I know it's deep.
I know boy
it's
crazy. It was deep, but I think as a teenager, it wasn't as deep.
Okay.
It was why am I chasing these boys all the time? Why am I waiting at home for them to call me? Not that I was asking myself those questions, but I was very aware of the things that I was doing. I was always chasing a boy. And as I got older, I started to recognize that I was doing that because I was actually chasing my the affection that I didn't get from my father.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's dope.
Yeah.
So what influences did you have in your life outside of, your grandmother? Just from childhood to where you're now, some major influences to help you become who you've become.
Yeah. I think my sister and I got really lucky with the people in our lives. My father's wife was an integral piece of my relationship with my father. And so very grateful to her, grateful to my aunt who, my mother's sister, who started raising us when she was only 20. So at 20 years old, she took on these two, preteens. And so she did a phenomenal job. My grandparents, my uncle. And I think we also had a lot of community around us. Like we had, I grew up Catholic, long since have moved away from Catholicism. But we grew up Catholic, and so we had a church community around us. And I think having had such an early loss, people really rallied around my family. And so, school and people really being on top of me and knowing my story and just staying on top of me. So I had a lot of figures that were really influential and helpful around those times.
That's dope, because I like the it takes a village to raise a child mentality.
Right, yeah.
Man. Yeah. Back then you guys had that, and that's beautiful. And I got to take my hat off to you and your family. It sounds like you guys are victorious, full of love, full of support. And I'm all for that. I'm a country boy from Texas.
I can hear it.
Yeah, we're used to that, man. That's beautiful, man. So your story, love it. I got to tag the mister in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, bro. So I want to hear about what was childhood like for you?
Childhood for me. So I'm from Boston as well, specifically Mattapan. Grew up in a Haitian household. I was born here. Both my parents are born in Haiti. They met here, I think, in the 70s. They were pretty young. My father came here for college, my mom for high school. But in terms of childhood for me, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of tough following Vanessa's story because it wasn't anything similar to that. Experiencing a loss of a parent. I have a younger sister. We grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist household, which was pretty strict. So that was very present all the time. Friday evenings to Saturday, it's all about church. We went to a Seventh-day Adventist elementary school up until middle school in Dorchester. So presence of God was always there. Not to say that we didn't struggle with that as kids. You know how kids are.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like, God, do I have to go to church?
We all been there, bro.
100%.
Yeah,
Things like that. Why can't, and there's certain rules, for lack of a better term, in terms of Seventh-day Adventists, that are different than other religions. We're also tough, like can't go to the movies, can't have like your ears pierced or jewelry, or, just random stuff. So, as a kid, just always kind of questioning that. But for the most part, because we were surrounded by other Seventh-day Adventists for school, for church, some family members, not a lot, you didn't really feel that, loss of like, I don't get to go to the movies with my friends. You know what I mean? When most likely your friends are not going to the movies as well. I know we've had discussions about like holidays. That's another thing, like Halloween. We don't do Halloween. Don't do Christmas. And I got used to it. I had no choice. I grew up in that. So. Right. When you're talking, we're having a kid and talking about like, well, what are we gonna do for like Christmas? And it's like, I was fine without Christmas and the Christmas tree, and people kind of look at you weird, like, oh, but the kid, you know what I mean? Like, they need to experience that, and it's like, they'll be fine. You know what I mean? Do they? Maybe some of it, because as a kid myself, looking on to, like commercials or sitcoms or even just
Home Alone,
exactly, or other kids, it's like, oh yeah, that is actually kind of cool and whatever. But besides that, I really had no complaints as a kid. I was always on the computer, always playing sports, a lot of basketball, hanging out with family members. I think, like I said, the only thing struggled with was that religion piece, really, especially growing up with my father, who could be kind of strict, actually very strict. And when you turn into a teenage years, that's when you start, you know, experimenting, like, well, why do I have to do this? And then you start exerting your power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
well, you're not going to tell me just because, you know, if I'm saying, like, why can't I do this? Because I said so. Yeah, that's not good enough.
That's not enough.
Yeah, I need a little bit more than that. And him also struggling with now you have an emerging man in this house who's testing your authority and who still wants to hold on to treating you as a kid. And so now we're going to have clashes. You know what I mean? So that was something that was, I would say, towards teenage years, put a strain in our relationship. We're fine, but it's not what you would typically would want from a father-son relationship. It's very much a, how you doing, whatever, keep it surface stuff. But then anything too deep, it's like, you know, I probably don't want to get too deep into that, whatever, because then that power struggle will start coming around and whatnot. But in terms of what I used to do as a kid, you know, like I said, I used to be on the computer all the time, and that kind of influenced where I am now in life. My father, he used to be, what was the technical term? A draftsman. I think they call it something different now, but basically he would draw blueprints of computers back in the 80s, and computers at the time were those big ones that would take up a whole wall and whatever. So he worked at some company, I forgot the name of it, but so there was always creative stuff around the house, like, you know, papers, stencils, and even old computers, like an old Apple IIe, an old IBM where the screen was only just black and green.
Yeah, I remember
you know what I mean?
that.
Yeah, exactly. So as a kid, because, you know, growing up in that strict household, and, you know, I would watch too much TV, then get reprimanded for that. So then it's like, all right, well, we have a computer here. Let me mess around with that. And I would literally mess around with that. So I'm breaking it. And then it's like, oh, let me try to fix it before he comes home. And so in terms of me figuring out how computers work, that's how that came about, just troubleshooting, so I don't get in trouble and things like that. But that kind of stuck with me in terms of what I do now as a graphic designer, an app designer, a web designer, you know, messing around with, you know, his stencils and some art programs he would have on the computer and things like that. So yeah.
Amazing, bro. I love the creativity, man.
Yeah.
And well, one, you make me feel old. When you start talking about the IBM with the screen, I'm like, yo, oh, for real, bro? Man.
Yeah.
Bro. You make me feel old, man. I'm only 34. But that statement,
I'm older than you, bro.
Yeah, but yo, that statement got me feeling like I'm like 60. I'm like, well, has it been that long? That's incredible, man.
We've come so far. That's why.
Yeah, facts. I like that. Yeah. I'm a roll with that right there.
Yeah.
So you spoke about your dad, and you know how he, you know, disciplined you and all of that. And you're getting ready to have a child yourself.
Yep.
So what would you do differently as far as, you know, disciplining and raising your own kid? And what would you also keep? Like, what would you implement as far as like fatherhood upon you know, upon your own child as well?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
The keeping part, let me think about that one. I probably think about your first part of your question. I think about that all the time. I've always thought about that since my teenage years. And I think most teenagers who have conflicts with their parents think that, like, oh, when I have a kid, it's going to be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes they repeat the same thing. I've always kept it in my conscience, like, no, I'm going to be different. And I think in terms of my own personality, because you asked Vanessa, Ben, about her influences.
Yeah, we want to get to you. Yeah.
I think the way we were brought up influenced how I am as a person and how I'm going to be to my child. Now, usually when people say influence, they're talking about like, you know, the good things and whatnot. Me, it's going to be the opposite. You know what I mean? I'm sure there are going to be some things that I'll probably keep there because, and I've said this to him myself, like things could have been worse. You have fathers who are absent, who beat the I don't know if I can swear or whatnot, will beat the stuff out of you. You know what I mean? Molestation or you know, drunk and you know, things like that. I had nothing like that, you know, when I was a kid. So for that, I'm appreciative. For how I'm going to be, or I hope to be, with my own child. By the way, we don't know what we're having. We're gonna wait until until that album drops. The album drops.
That's so much. It's better than what we see. Everyone doing these reveal parties,
the gender reveals.
I mean, that's a whole different.
I know we have conversations
topic, but I don't know if I want to have a whole celebration as to what's happening in between my child's legs.
I like that. I like that, man.
But going back to what I was saying, in terms of the way I hope to raise my own child is one, letting them be free to be who they are, and for myself to grow with that. I think, you know, when it comes to some parents, including by the way, my mom, you know, was very welcoming and opening about, you know, anything I wanted to do. But, you know, you would have some parents who are pretty strict. They kind of want you to be a certain way all the time. They think of you as a certain way and they're not growing with you. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that I would want to be for my own child, be more accepting of whatever they want to do. I wanted to, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an ice cream man because I thought I could get endless ice cream. You know what I mean? Whereas he's like, no, you got to be this, that. And then it's like, well, how about if I was to do it differently, how about just exploring, well, why would you want to be an ice cream man? You know what I mean? Like, let's explore that. Let's talk about that, you know, and the intricacies of that. If I wanted to play basketball, and whatnot, no, you know, there's only, you know, what parents usually say, like, what's your backup plan? And and it's like, just roll with me with this one, you know what I mean? And I like I said, I just want to be a little bit more open as to whatever my child wants to be, become, is into. Just be flexible, and you know, there's things that I can learn from whatever little kid stuff that they're into, or teenage stuff that they're into, and you know, so that I'm not completely out of touch. And you know, I think that's something that I know I struggled with this as a teenager, when you would have adults who are out of touch with what you're into. So then it's like, I can't talk to you. You know what I mean? That's real. I don't feel like I can come to you for stuff because you're probably just going to look down on it. It's out of your realm.
Can't relate.
They can't relate.
Yeah,
so
they're not open to learning.
And then that's another thing too. So then I most likely will just go to my peoples for that, who probably can't give me the best advice or anything like that. You know, they're trying to figure their own stuff out as well. But sometimes you hear that it's good to be your child's best friend, but then sometimes you hear the opposite of that. I think I would have to try to find that balance where I want you to come to me for whatever is wrong with you, that you feel comfortable coming to me for that, because I don't want you going out there trying to figure out those answers. But then still be that disciplinarian. I can't. How do you say disciplinarian? Yes, that word. Where certain things, you know, ethically just still can't fly. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's I don't know if I answered your question. I was kind of
no. You're good, man. You spot on the money, man. I take my hat off to you. And that is being the best friend. You know, if your child can come to you, you know, that safe zone, you know, that comfort. Like, I can go to my pops and talk to him about this. Like, you know, I was embarrassed to talk to my parents about sex.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh man.
You know, so I can tell right off the bat, you're gonna be a great father. So you're gonna provide that comfort to where your child can come to you like, I don't want to go to my friends, I don't want to go to a teacher, I want to go to my dad, and talk to him about these issues of life, and that's beautiful. That's good.
Thank you.
It's gonna be like a safe space for him.
Yeah.
Of correction,
or
it's
her.
balanced too, or her,
Or her.
Or them.
Yeah. Or them.
Oh snap, yo! I love it.
It's possible. Let's speak that out there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I don't want to go into that, but I remember my mom asked my stepfather to talk to me about sex, and I think it might have been like 8 or something. I was under 10. It was between 8 and 10.
Yeah.
And I go to my stepfather, my mom wants me to talk to you about the birds and the bees, and he's like, all right, birds and the bees. He gives me the whole spiel, and then but basically what he said to me is, what did he say? And like, it's not the best way to tell a child what the body parts that they have. Men have, what do you say? Men have, I don't know if he said the D word.
But they don't ever really use the technical terms.
No.
It's usually some
penis
sort
is not
of,
the word
right.
they use.
Yeah.
So men have D's and women have P's. Yeah, the P word. And this guy. So I go back to my mom. She's asking me about, what did you learn? And I told her, men have D's and women have P's.
Yeah.
She wore into me. Don't you ever use that word again. And I'm like,
but you told him to come to me.
Oh,
and then she storms off in the room, yelling at him. Don't you ever tell my son.
Yo, that's bro.
Yeah,
that's real.
Because that's how I got introduced to the birds and the bees. But back to y'all.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be a more holistic conversation with the two of you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But so could you go into like the influences on? You kind of referenced it.
Yeah.
Like what influences you have or had in your life that kind of helped mold you to be who you are today.
That
made Vanessa want to share the rest of her life with.
Yeah, sorry for her. Influences. Well, I already talked about my father, and how that influences me. Other influences. I would say when I got a little bit older, being fortunate to have some good, level-headed friends by my side, who I'm basically a late bloomer when it comes to having kids, marriage, and things like that. I'm 40 now, and I just got married in November, and having a first child now. Usually, most of my friends probably in their 20s, or early 30s. So seeing how the relationship they have with their kids, with their wives, or just other things too, like just grown-up stuff, adulting, like buying a home, finances, jobs, things like that, because they have a family now, they need to provide. You know what I mean? It can't be just a job; it has to be a career now. You know what I mean? So, having those guys around, and them also creating a safe space as a man to be able to sit and rap with them, just talk. You know what I mean? Shout out to my guy West, my brother-in-law Chris Godfrey, my cousin Stefan, my boy Mott, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other guys that I'm forgetting right now. But these are guys who I usually look to and talk to, as my counsel, when it comes to a variety of things, of just being a man who needs to step up, for certain responsibilities and whatnot. Other influences, my mom as well. My mom did a great job being what I was talking about earlier, that, best friend / I'm still your mother though, you know what I mean? Where you can't come at me any certain time. Don't get too comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She she did a lot to hold me and my sister down, make sure that we were good. When it comes to the way you treat a woman, be around women, understand women as a man, I would say I got that from my mom. You know, opening doors, being mindful of insecurities women might have. And I know I'm not saying that I've always followed it and whatever, but always doing my best. You know, being aware of seeing that dynamic between my mom and my father, where my father would be try to be that, you know, I'm the alpha male, you know, spiritual leader of this house, and and my mom being like, nah, calm down. You know what I mean? Sometimes, you know, she would let it slide, you know, just to, you know, keep, you know, peace and whatever. But then you would see moments where it just wouldn't fly. And seeing that dynamic, it's like, yeah, I don't want to be that. You know, I'm looking for someone, and I think you hear that from most people. Like, guys want to have a woman that resembles more like their mom. You know what I mean? Or have some of their mom's traits.
Yeah.
And I think for my mom, in terms of what I was looking for in relationships, is someone who is someone who I wish my father could be for my mom. Someone who would treat her as an equal, or at least try to. You know what I mean? Not just being this, you know, because I said so. I'm not, you know, I'm the man of the house and da 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 and whatever. So then, knowing that my mom has her own opinions, her own, you know, thoughts and, you know, things like that she wants to push forward, and being open to hearing that. It's like it has to be like an equal partnership and whatever. And I think that's something I've always looked for when it comes to a relationship. You know what I mean? Even something as simple as and stupid as, I remember telling you about this, height. You know what I mean? You know, someone who's the same height as, you know, or at least close to the same height as me, because I don't want to feel like that guy just towering over you, because it just triggers me. When it comes to like
Dominance.
a guy. Yeah, exactly. So
That's
I don't
good.
want to do that.
That's
you know,
good.
I would want someone who could check me, you know what I mean? Because too many times, if you give anybody too much power, you know, they start to become unrecognizable, even to themselves.
That's
you know
good.
what I mean?
That's good.
Where
You
it's
saw
like,
that in your mom.
what'd you say?
You saw that in your mom.
Yeah.
Where she was able to do that and not let the power sort of.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you'll see instances where if someone just lets you do whatever they want, you know what I mean? Just completely submissive. And then the other party just will take advantage of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Abuse it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Unknowingly sometimes
Yeah.
knowingly. I've been in relationships like that myself, where, you know, the other party is just, you know, whatever you want to do, Jocelyn. Sure, Jocelyn. And then all of a sudden I'm, you know, all right, cool, bet. You know what I mean? I'll be that then. And
Because now it's all about me.
it's all about me.
Yeah.
And then I could see myself like, Jocelyn, why are you doing this? You know what I mean? Just taking advantage and what. And it's like, not to say that is that other person's fault because they're just letting you, but I need to check myself too. But it's hard to do that
That's
when
good.
you know
Yeah.
you don't have that those checks and balances and
Yeah.
whatever. So, I would think my mom is another influence for myself. And then, you know, typical things like your teachers are also your influences. I grew up in the 80s, so my teachers were, I told you this, Vanessa, that my teachers were folks who were there during the Civil Rights era. So when they're teaching us Black History Month, we're really having a Black History Month. You know what I mean? The school I went to was all black. So they're telling us the stories of the dogs sent out on them, the hoses.
From the perspective of a person of color, a black person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because they were
That's
all black.
good.
So so to hear those stories, and then to see where, and you know, unfortunately, you know, this generation where the teachers they have now, you know, they're young, you know what I mean? So they didn't go through that. So they have to learn Black history or just the struggle of being an African American in the United States in a different kind of way. They're learning it from, learning it. From, however, versus I'm learning it from the people who are actually there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a difference.
It's a very big difference. And I don't think it was something I appreciated then when I was a kid. Even though I was aware of it, like I said, Black History Month was very much black. And sometimes it was all year, you know what I mean? You're singing Lift Every Voice and sing, every day, as well as the Star Spangled Banner and stuff like that. But when you get older and then you start being aware of your blackness, those stories, those images of Emmett Till when you were a kid that shook me are starting to come back now. You know what I mean? And I'm aware of my blackness all the time. And, you're seeing how the world is right now, and just super appreciative of those teachers who put me on at the time to see that some things have changed, but for the most part it hasn't. You know what I mean? And to also be proud of your blackness and whatnot. I'm learning all the time. Now I'm like watching documentaries all the time. It's I wish I got to have that appreciation. I'm like a kid. Kids, everything goes over our head.
That's all of us. Yeah.
But now it's like, I wish I had those moments where I could have sat there and talked to them, like really talk to them about like what they went through. You know what I mean? That I didn't get a chance to do when I was a kid. But yeah, so those are my influences. I'm sorry if I got too deep.
No, man, that's what it's all about.
I wanted to ask Vanessa about, because she introed that she was Afro.
Capo Verdean.
Yeah. So like, what does that mean to you? Because we know, for us, we know just a lot of people are just Cape Verdean.
Yeah.
And so for you to say Afro Cape Verdean, then so what is that? How does that impact you?
I was listening to what Jocelyn was saying, and I think, I tell him this frequently, how envious I was of his, what was that, elementary, middle school?
Yeah.
Having had those teachers, because I grew up going to predominantly white schools. I went to schools in South Boston, and immediately they placed me in bilingual speaking classes. And I'm like, I was born here. I can actually speak English. But that's just what they did then. And going to predominantly white schools, being placed in bilingual classes, I think really messed me up. I didn't have what Jocelyn had, where I was surrounded by people who looked like me. I had quite the opposite. To a certain extent, because then what ended up happening was, the schools became very diverse, and Southie had a lot, prior to my going to school there, had, its history and busing. And so I don't know that I quite knew or understood identity or understood my blackness, understood my culture being a Cabo Verdean. I don't think any of that really was internalized as a child. I think as I got older and continued to go to predominantly white schools, it started to come out a little bit more. The last 2 years, I think I've really struggled with my identity in many ways. And so when I say Afro Cabo Verdean, I say it with a lot of pride now. During the massacres of Black men in the last 2 years, and even prior, but just how it came to surface in the way that it did in 2020, that brought up a lot of my own sort of, wait a second, I'm a light-skinned Black woman. I'm also a Cape Verdean Black woman. And Cabo Verde was colonized by Portuguese. So we did our DNA test.
Yeah, we did.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Portuguese in me, and a lot more than...
Yeah, sure.
I have about 48% Portuguese. And I know why, and I know where that comes from. But I struggled with that because I struggled trying to find my place in the Black Lives Matter movement and wanting to say I am Black, and my folks saying, but we're not Black, we're Portuguese. And really, I did a lot of digging. I did a lot of research. I looked into the history of Cabo Verde. I looked into the history of colonization. I looked into the history of slavery. I looked into the history of, my people coming to the U.S. I looked into my own lived experiences. I grew up in a Cape Verdean household, but I also grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. And I never saw myself other than just a person of color. And so there were moments that in Jocelyn and I's conversation where I was jealous of not having had those experiences because I was surrounded by white teachers. I was surrounded by whiteness. And so I internalized a lot of that as an adult. So I actually really love hearing his stories. And so I think I really, I lived through that with him. Yeah. And I apologize, but these days I can't breathe as well as I used to be able to.
You flowing just fine. You
The
good.
baby is pushing up on some things.
You breathing for two.
Oh man, that's dope.
I gotta catch my breath.
The flow is just fun, man. I think that's dope. But you can kind of sort of relate to, quote unquote, his struggles though, because like you said, your people were, you had your issues with the Portuguese back then. So you can kind of sort of, relate to whatever, the struggles, the issues amongst, I don't know, regular Black people. I don't know which one to call it.
Yeah.
It's Black people, Haitian
Oh,
American.
Well,
Yeah.
being Haitian American.
Haitian American, yeah.
And Haitian Americans have their own history when it comes to slavery and things like that. But at the end of the day, walking around America, they still look at you as Black. You know what I mean? So whether you're, Jamaican American, Haitian American, Trinidadian American, or just African American, it's all the same.
It's all the same.
It's all the same. You know what I mean? I probably, the struggles of African Americans who were, gone through generations of racism here in this country and slavery here in this country. I'm sympathetic to it to a point where I feel like that's my history as well. You know what I mean? So to me, we're all the same people and whatever. You know what I mean? Your struggle is my struggle. And things like that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Growing up, in my household, we were taught to be good immigrants. So even though I was,
what do they call that? Model minority?
Yeah.
Basically, you're not like Black Americans. Like basically to be better.
I mean,
than,
we would get that too.
No,
As
yeah,
Haitians.
we did, yeah.
Low-key, that's what it means. The Africans did it. Haitians did
Yeah.
it. Jamaica,
Yeah.
come in.
It's kind of stupid though, because it's like, we're not them, and it's like, but
we are.
But we are, because they treat us the same way. They're not
But you
checking to see like, are you Haitian or are you African American?
Yeah.
I'll treat you some other different type of way. You know what I mean? So to me, when I would hear that as well, you know what I mean? And at the same time too, it's like, we're all one people. Let's not divide. You know what I mean? Like, we need to be unified when it comes to this. Versus like, oh, look at those, African Americans or African Americans thinking the same thing about us, or thinking that about Nigerians or something like that. It's like, this is kind of stupid.
I think I could do that as an adult.
Yeah.
Like when I was older, I could say to, my grandparents or my aunt and uncle who were raising us, I can say to them, but we're not any different.
Yeah.
But growing up, I couldn't. Growing up, it really was about being better than what we call pretos, like the African American. And
is that a derogatory term?
No, it just means Black person.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Like Moreno.
Like Moreno. It's just, but I was taught to just be a good immigrant. And what that meant was you focus on education, you're family oriented, and you're just a good person, which also then added to my internalized racism, where certain things came out in the way that I behaved, where my voice was silenced. I felt like I had to prove myself that much more in college. You know, I saw the impact of that, being a good immigrant.
Yeah.
And so I could be wrong, but I feel like, you know, anyone that was in that position, it was, it's like, yeah, we're trying to survive. Like we see how African Americans are being treated. I'm like, we don't want no parts of that. Not even trying to be, you know, rude or anything. They're like, oh, I don't want that. You know, I don't want them issues. So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be the quote unquote good immigrant and do what I got to do to make it in America or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember the shift for me when I started to really learn, because similar to you, I grew up in the North Shore, so it was all mostly white, and then like there were some like Caribbean, some Haitians around, but mostly black and white, and mostly white. So I didn't really understand. Like I knew I was black, but I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'd be in class and I'm flirting with a white girl and I'm getting in trouble, but I don't know why I'm getting in trouble.
Interesting.
White male teachers like go to the office.
Yeah.
And my I remember having to talk with my stepbrother. He's 10 years older than me, and my mom had him talk to me about black and white issues.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it because I'm not being taught about it in school.
Yeah.
You know, and then so it wasn't until like I remember envying, like watching Drumline, watching like watching black movies because I'm not in a black environment. And I always, and that's why like to this day, like I'll live in the hood, like I don't care. Because it's about our community. I went down to DC for
DC.
Yeah, well, we were in Maryland for Clarnell's wedding.
That was a couple 3 years ago.
It's amazing, just being so. Multiple stories we could talk about. When Jerron got married, we went to Morgan State. The beauty of black women. I was looking to that stadium. I was like, this is a movie. But the more
like
important thing,
Drumline.
I wish I would have had this experience.
You know, but I have that same.
Yeah.
I wish I would have gone to an HBCU or
100%.
you know.
I actually applied. So anyway, it's not about me. So like, we went to Maryland.
Yeah.
We stayed in this Airbnb owned by a black guy. He texted me the day of, you know, we get caught up partying, we go to DC. The next morning he comes over just to check in. And he starts talking to us about his life and his life experience. He grew up similar, just in black environments. Just that cultivated him. He talked about how it empowered and cultivated him to be who he is. To not ever feel down. Then he talked about his wife, who grew up in white environments, and how that she grew up with the less than mentality. And so how his experience being much different, and why the importance of the community versus like integrating too early, you could say. So then you're, you know, have a different mindset about yourself and your environment. Absolutely. And it's important.
That's hot. That's dope. I love it. I grew up in, you know, the hood too. And
which part of Texas are you from?
Dallas.
Okay.
Dallas, but the Oak Cliff area, which is the hood.
Was that like across that?
So yeah, it's like Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury type of thing.
Gotcha.
Like that. And so tons of beautiful black people, and you know we say, you know, I don't mind being in the hood because these are my peoples. But at the same time, our peoples wild out. You know.
They do.
So I'm like, I feel what you're saying. I'm the same way. But you know, just for the viewers, it's like, okay, he enjoys staying in the hood. And my mindset is I don't want to be in the hood because I see the shootings, I see the killings, I hear the violence. You know what I mean? I don't want my kids around that. You know, what's your take on that, or anybody's take on that type?
Yeah, that's
we talk about that a lot,
all the time.
Yeah,
especially recent events.
I think I've always thought about that, where my sister loves, you know, like the South Shore, you know, like where there's a little bit more trees. And I think all of us would like something similar to that too. But people there don't look like us. You know what I mean? And I don't know. That's a struggle because, you know, you want to be in an area where you have that sense of community. It's safe. Schooling system is, you know, amazing and whatever. And you want those trees too. You know what I mean? Nature, big yard, and things like that. I think right now it's more of a compromise. I shout out to the people who just like, nah, I'm gonna just go out there and white folks are gonna have to deal with me and whatever, and that's great for them. I don't know. I'm already surrounded by people who don't look at me all the time for work and whatnot. Sometimes you just want to be, where you are with your people, and you're not on all the time.
It's
you know
home.
what I mean?
It feels
It's home. It's home.
It feels home.
The times I drive, you know this. I haven't lived in Mattapan. I'm from Mattapan. I haven't lived in Mattapan since 2006. Anytime I drive through Mattapan, oh man, it feels so good.
Yeah, bro.
It's so good
Yeah.
being here. Even though you see, you say our folks be wildin'. It's like, I appreciate you, bro, wildin'. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've been in Dorchester, and Dorchester looks a little bit different than Mattapan. It's way more diverse. You know what I mean? You get Cape Verdeans, you get Dominicans, Vietnamese, Puerto Rican. You get Black, you get West Indian. Whereas Mattapan, for the most part, I only just see people that look like me there. And you have a familiarity to it and whatever. So it's home, and to be anywhere outside of that, so if I'm already kind of struggling in Dorchester, I can't imagine what it would be like if I'm in like Malden or I don't know. I don't want to say any more places to insult people who probably live there. Like, what's wrong with where I live?
Like Newton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, that would be awesome to live there. When you see on, I think it's like USA Today, where Newton has always been rated pretty high in terms of in the country education, raising a family, and whatever amongst any other place in America. You know what I mean? They're usually always up there and whatnot.
The high school, when they built it, was over $1 million for the high school.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish I could live there. You know what I mean? I wish my peoples could come with me.
I can bring my people, right. I can bring my peoples with me. I think I grew up on Bowdoin. So growing up on Bowdoin in the 90s and early 2000s, crazy. I've lost a lot of friends. I've also had to run home because I know that there's a shooting right behind me. And most people don't, when you see me and you speak with me, you don't know that I've had these experiences. You don't know that I've come very close to, seeing things that I shouldn't be seeing, witnessing and experiencing, losing. I can count how many friends I've lost to gun violence, who I grew up with, hung out on the stoops with, and still, I'm right back where I grew up, and still I love my neighborhood. I love the people. You know what it is for me? It's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people. There is community there. There really is people watching out for you. Even though they don't necessarily want to snitch, they're still going to look out for you.
Absolutely. Yep. That's a fact.
Yeah, they're still going to look out for you. And, I also appreciate nature. I also appreciate what it does for your well-being. We don't have a lot of that in urban environments, which is why I appreciate the community garden next door, because I can do that there. And so, and figuring out what it looks like for us as a couple and for us while we're raising our family, we talk about this, and we always say, like, we want to stay in the hood, but we want to be in maybe like the nicer parts of the hood.
Yes,
those tree-lined streets, the family homes.
Yep.
Like Melville over there.
Right, those areas.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be.
Where it's like throw a rock and I'm Mattapan Square, but for me it is home. So I think I've long since let go of the making it out of the hood mentality and really looking at, well, how can I beautify the hood? How can I
improve it?
How can I improve it? How can I make a difference? Which is why I do the work that I do, and I love doing community work because, and I've always been like that. I've always been like that as a kid. I was always involved in after-school programs that were about community enrichment, and so I think that also gave me a lot of value in looking at the beauty around me.
Yeah.
The murals, the people, the sounds. Oh my God, I love, it might drive everybody else crazy, but during the summer,
Oh,
I
boy.
love hearing,
Oh boy.
I love hearing the Dominicans and their loudspeaker outside.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and then up the street, you got the Cape Verdean music, and then you've got like Haitian music on the
Yeah.
other end. I love that. It
Yeah.
feels like community for me.
You can't.
It's like life.
Yeah, you
It
can't
is.
beat culture, bro.
Yeah.
You can't beat culture.
Yeah.
It's authentic. It's real. You can't duplicate it either, man. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
people. You know,
Yeah.
if we can pick the community up and move it to Malden, what was that?
Yeah.
Newton or whatever.
Yeah.
That'll be hot. But it's there in Mattapan. It's there in Dorchester. It's home. It just
Yeah.
is what it is, man. And like I said, you touched on it. You touched on it. It's like we're there to be that light
Yeah.
to change the community.
Of course.
And with us, we can do that. People like us, it can be done.
Yeah.
You know, so we can. I don't want to be disrespectful, but we can turn Mattapan into Newton or whatever. You see,
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean?
I get what
You
you
know
mean.
the
It's
quality.
all
Yeah,
little.
there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the ability to do that.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. And I speak from experience because I've lived in Walpole. So I've lived in the suburbs, and so I have my
Same
pick
here.
now. Yeah.
All right. So we'll transition
Okay.
to like one last question before we get to like who you are. So I'm gonna ask both of you. So your experiences with like say your father before he passed and like developing a relationship and like how you transition from the way you were with men to like where you are now. Like what is your understanding of manhood, you know, to at this point in your life?
You know, so while my father wasn't there the first 2 years, when I did develop a closer relationship with him, I actually got to really appreciate him. He was a man who didn't speak much. When he did speak, it was profound. The things that he said were really, I paid attention to. And I watched him. I'm an observer, and we were just talking about this on our drive up here, how I love watching him. And I love watching Jocelyn with other people and his interactions and who he is. I love observing him because I learned so much about him. I did the same thing with my father, and I don't think a lot of people know this about me. In my relationship with him is that I watched him and I observed him and I saw how he moved, and he had a quietness and a stillness about him that I really appreciated. He was funny, he was sincere, and I see it in my brother as well. So I have other siblings too, and I see it in my brother, and I see the kind of man that he is, and I can only imagine that while my father might have not shown up in the ways that we all needed him to, there were ways that he did show up that I can appreciate. But as a child, having not had him there that as closely as I think I might have needed it in my formative years, it left those voids that I sought out in relationships as a teenager up until maybe like in my early 30s.
That's when you had to figure out.
I think I figured it out.
Somewhat figured out.
Like my early 30s. I think I had like a few difficult relationships that finally it hit me, and it was around the time that, like right before my father passed away, that I realized like, oh shoot, I'm replaying patterns that my parents were going through.
Yeah.
I'm repeating what we call, generational stuff.
Yeah.
Cycles.
I'm carrying mother wounds and daddy issues. And I think once then that happened, I remember having gone through a difficult breakup in 2000 and, late 2017, early 2018, because I met Jocelyn in, we started dating in 2018.
Damn, were you dating two dudes at the same time?
Hey,
No.
This
Wow.
is
This
Maury.
is way after.
Wow. No, I'm playing.
This is way after.
I mean, in the talking phase, you just talking.
But I remember, and for the life of me, we hear women talk about the lists that they create. I actually did that. I think I learned what I needed and how I needed to show up in relationships, what I needed from a partner. And I wrote down a list of the things that I wanted. And, some of them were, I've always thought that if you're real specific with God, if you're real specific about the things that you want, to be specific about it, to specify and to really write down what those things are. And I wrote that down. I wrote it down, and I really said to myself, right now we're not chasing any men. Right now we're not looking for a relationship. Right now, V, you're focusing on your business, you're focusing on you, your health, your growth, your healing, your well-being. You're focusing on the relationships in your life. You're focusing on just being a better version of yourself and integrating those lessons that you've learned in the last couple of years. And here he comes. Here comes Jocelyn kind of coming into that when I was in that space. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. Is he commented on my post about a designing program that I was using, and in him I see all the things that I wanted. And when I talked earlier and I said we're in good spirits, I'm in great spirits today because I'm very appreciative of this season in my life. And he's a part of this season in my life. And so he came with everything I could have wanted, didn't know I needed, and can really appreciate. He's taught me what it means to be a man. And what I love about him is he's not, I don't know if you would say this about yourself, but you're not like an alpha male like that. Like I don't,
you're to me for an answer.
No, but you're not like,
what do you mean by alpha male?
Yeah, I think that's
my perspective of alpha male is insecurity.
Okay.
So, because you're trying to project this dominance over people, over things, that's insecurity.
So he's not what he described that he saw in his father, right, in some ways. He's not who I thought men were. I thought men were assertive. Men were going to tell me what to do, and I was just going to follow suit. That he was going to be the leader of the household. That he was always going to have the answers. He was, he's allowing me to be me. He's allowing space for us to grow together and to do this as actual partners. And I love seeing that about him because I think growing up, I didn't necessarily, in my culture, that's not what he's very different from some of the men in my culture. Mm-hmm. And so he's taught me a lot about what it means to be man, what it means to be a black man, what it means to be a partner, what it means to be a provider, what it means to be just a good soul.
Thank you for listening to the Follow Then Lead podcast. You can reach us on social media at
the email is followthenleadinc@gmail.com, Instagram Follow Then Lead Podcast, and our Twitter is Follow Then Lead P. Until next time,
take it easy.
Word.